What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, Nintendo released their financial report for this past fiscal year that ended March 31st, and it turns out the Switch is selling really well, both on the hardware and software side of things. Some massive numbers being shown that are absolutely staggering at times. We'll go over all of that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about a reported PlayStation 5 redesign that's apparently in the works right now, but it's not exactly how it sounds. Oh, and we're also going to be talking about E3, as the ESA has now confirmed that more developers and publishers will be joining in on the show. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with an update to the Returnal story from yesterday, where a patch was pushed and auto-updated to quite a few PS5 systems that started to corrupt and erase save game files. Well, it looks like within 24 hours, they were able to push out a patch, that being Housemarque, that fixed this issue. And we can head over here to their website, where they say patch 1.3.4 is now live. This patch reverts to a previous stable build, that being 1.3.1, also addressing a known trophies issue and fixing a keyboard exploit. Please stay tuned for info on patch 1.3.5. Can't wait to see what that one does there. With patch 1.3.4, all save games are safe to be played now. And they go on a bit further to explain if your save game is salvageable, if, for example, it still has some sort of file size attached to it. By updating to 1.3.4, you should be able to get your save game back and start playing like normal. However, if you have a 0 next to the file size for your save game, it's most likely gone, and you'll unfortunately have to start all over again. So hopefully 1.3.5 comes out and is a bit smoother with its delivery, because yeah, it's not fun to lose your save game, especially for something like Returnal. Also, we had a bit of a surprising game announcement yesterday. Check this trailer out here. That's right. That's Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. It's out today even. The trailer dropped yesterday and was like, hey, May 7th, go ahead and pick it up on the Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Series X. You can look towards the consoles for a 4K remaster of the game, or you can look towards the Switch if you want to have a portable experience for it. But this was a game that I really enjoyed back in the day on like the GameCube or the original Xbox. There was a second one as well that I really liked. I hope that one also comes over, because these games are just a ton of fun. But it was like a cooperative kind of Diablo looking style game, and it was just a lot of fun. So I mean, what a cool announcement to see randomly drop online, and I'll be picking it up later on today. I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna grab it. It'd be interesting to get it on the Switch and have that game portably, but also to hear that it kind of has like the 4K remaster treatment is pretty cool too. But awesome game to play through if you have a friend you want to go through. I don't know if it has online or any of that yet. I'll have to double check, but again, out of nowhere, really fun announcement here. Certainly one worth checking out. Oh, and it looks like Ubisoft is going to be pushing things a bit further even with the Division series. The Division 2 has been doing very well for them and has had a ton of support from the player base going forward here. And it looks like we'll be getting more content with Division 2, but it looks like we'll also be getting an entirely new Division game built around a free-to-play model. And we can head over here to Ubisoft's website, where they did post up this news release saying, while work continues on the Division 2, other Ubisoft teams have been exploring additional ways to introduce the Division to even more players. Today, we're pleased to share that Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland, a free-to-play game set in the Division universe, is in development at our Red Storm studio. Having worked on Tom Clancy games since 1997, its extensive experience across numerous genres and games, most recently The Division and Division 2, makes Red Storm a perfect fit for the project. Heartland is a standalone game that doesn't require previous experience with the series, but will provide an all-new perspective on the universe in a new setting. The game will be made available in 2021 or 2022 on PC, consoles, and cloud. To go a little further here, they say Heartland isn't the only new game in development. The Division will also be coming to mobile platforms for the very first time. And that's not surprising, because we see how lucrative the cell phone market is. I mean, Call of Duty Mobile, hundreds of millions of downloads. So yeah, it makes sense the Division will want to make a jump over there. And I'll be curious, as they develop for mobile devices and do development around ARM, if that also means they eventually bring Division to the Switch in some way. Something to keep an eye on there, but certainly big news for Division fans. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's financial report from this past fiscal year that ended March 31st. What we're going to do is start with the hardware and then go into the software. First though, Nintendo did pretty well this past fiscal year with a profit of $4.4 billion. So yeah, Nintendo doing pretty well for themselves there, but let's take a look at the hardware, starting with their Nintendo Investors Relation page, where they will update constantly throughout the year with all of the different figures for how many pieces of hardware they have sold, even able to compare it to older systems that they have. And we can see right at the top there, 84.59 million units for the Switch have been sold, and we can see the software at 587.12 million units. That puts it above the Game Boy Advance now, which is very impressive. I guess now we'd be up to the Wii, and then we'll look towards the Game Boy, and then eventually the DS from there. Now, this means that in this last fiscal quarter, so to start off 2021, the Switch sold 4.73 million units. That comes out to a total of 28.83 million units for this last fiscal year, beating out their originally planned 26.5 million units that they actually had to push up from their previous projections. So super impressive stuff there from the Switch. Of that 28.83, the Switch Lite actually accounted for 8.51 million, and the $300 hybrid Switch accounted for 20.32 million units. So yeah, the hybrid Switch is still the one that's the most popular overall. And if we want to take the Switch and compare it to other systems and how well they have sold, we can see Daniel Ahmed put together this chart here saying the Switch has sold in 84.59 million units after 49 months on the market. When launched online, the Switch is selling faster than the Wii and PlayStation 4. It will also surpass the 100 million unit milestone faster than the Wii and the PlayStation 4 did. And Nintendo also did talk about what they're expecting to sell over the next 12 months, and that would come in at 25.5 million, so a little down from what they just did. But if we take a look at David Gibson here during the Q&A, Nintendo answered back when asked about why it is lower, saying hardware guidance of 25.5 million is based on parts known and hence can produce. If we could produce more, then we'll do so given momentum is strong. So essentially Nintendo's like, well, we can only sell as many as we can produce. 25.5 million is about what we think, and if things turn around when it comes to the supply with chips and different components that are being used to make the systems, then we will extend this up higher like they did before, where they started at like 19.5 million and they ended up all the way up to 26.5, and they still beat that. So if things start to get better when it comes to supply constraints around these parts, I would expect that number to continue moving up. This is just Nintendo being a bit more conservative around the part shortage. It also sounds like Nintendo is indeed working on the next Switch system, as we would expect. We're halfway through the life according to Nintendo now, and I would hope they're working on plans for another Switch. Now would be probably a good time to start doing that, as they would like to do that years and years in advance. But we can see this from Daniel Ahmed saying Nintendo continues to invest heavily in R&D. In fiscal year 2020 and 21, spent approximately 880 million on R&D, more than any prior year. However, he does point out that that does represent a lower percentage of the overall revenue because it was pretty high. And actually, if we go over here once again, that being to Dave Gibson, we can see Nintendo answered back when it comes to where that R&D was spent, saying investing in online as well, although midway through Switch cycle, it is necessary to invest in the next platform where hardware and software integrated will continue. So there we go. It does look like the next Switch is underway, as expected. And don't think you're going to hear about that anytime soon. We're probably still, according to them, 3 to 4 years away from it. Okay, now let's move over to the software side of things. Nintendo has an entire page set up with some of their top selling units, and we can move over to that just to kind of go over some of the updated sales figures starting at the top. As usual, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 35.39 million pieces. This thing still sold over 10 million units this past fiscal year. That's more than some big-time AAA games from Sony, for example, would sell overall. And this is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe from the Wii U doing that. It's impressive stuff. I don't get it, but there we go. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's the game you buy when you buy a Switch, I guess. But Animal Crossing New Horizons is still right behind it at 32.63 million pieces. Then we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, 23.84 million pieces. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 22.28 million pieces. Pokemon Sword and Shield at 21.1 million. And we have Super Mario Odyssey at 20.83 million. Super Mario Party did got that update, so that's good. It's not on version 1.0.0 anymore. 14.79 million units, making more sense why they didn't update that one now. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee 13.28, Splatoon 2 at 12.21, and then new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 10.44 million pieces. That means you do have to sell over 10 million units just to get on this page that Nintendo has for the best-selling games on their platform. Now, I did pick out some highlights from their financial report. For example, Nintendo had 22 million unit sellers this fiscal year, that being 22 different games from them that they published that hit at least 1 million units sold over this last fiscal year, which is super impressive. I mean, that's a staggering number there if I've ever seen one. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, like I said, sold 10.62 million units this past fiscal year. A big time surprise here, and one that I think's kind of under the radar, Ring Fit Adventure sold 10.11 million units now in its lifetime. That's pretty impressive for a game like that. Certainly Nintendo caught on to something there with the Ring Fit Adventure series. Pretty cool to see that. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, since it debuted at the end of last year, has sold 1.27 million units. Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury has sold 5.59 million units. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening at 5.49 million. And Mario 3D All-Stars sold just over 9 million units. And it does make you wonder how well that game would do through the rest of the Switch's life if it wasn't discontinued right at the end of this fiscal year, March 31st, if it was able to sell just over 9 million units in like 6 months or something. So it's a shame on that one, because I would have liked to have seen how far that could have gone, but still, a little over 9 million units in a 6-month span is pretty good. Overall, super impressive stuff here from the Switch. I fully expect by the end of this year for it to have passed the Wii completely, that 101 million mark or so, with that holiday bump just pushing it past there. But the biggest thing to look at is the software side of things. I think this is going to be Nintendo's first 1 billion unit software seller, and that includes even the DS that wasn't able to make it there, which to me would make the Switch Nintendo's most successful system ever, because it's going to keep running, I think, even past that 1 billion unit mark. I don't know if it'll ever get to the DS's numbers, like 155 million, but based on how it's selling now, it's outpacing the Wii and even the PlayStation 4. So I think it'll outsell the PS4 overall when it comes to hardware, and the software is the big question then. But yeah, big time things here from Nintendo with the Switch. I expect big numbers going through this year into what should be a Zelda celebration, maybe Breath of the Wild 2, and who knows, maybe even a revision, we'll see. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and a redesign that could be happening. We can head over here to Twitter. This is from Dr. Circantoto saying, Taiwanese news outlet with spotty track record, Digitimes, Sony aims for a PS5 redesign for the second quarter or third quarter of 2022. It says the next PS5 will come with a new semi-customized 6nm CPU from AMD. 5nm is said to be too costly. And you might be wondering, why would they do a redesign for this exactly? Well, believe it or not, this solution was actually mentioned by Sony themselves in their conference call with investors, basically trying to figure out what do we do about the supply constraints, because it really comes down to component availability and everyone really looking to try to get their hands on these to make their different electronics. But we can actually see that here, this over at VGC, where they do quote part of that call saying, as I said earlier, we're aiming for more sales volume than the PS4, that'd be during year 2, but can we drastically increase the supply? No, that's not likely. The shortage of semiconductors is one factor, but there are other factors that will impact on the production volume. So at present, we'd like to aim at beating second year sales of 14.8 million, which was the second year of the PlayStation 4. For example, we could find maybe a secondary resource, or by changing the design, we could cope. So what would this mean exactly for early adopters or even people looking for a PlayStation 5 now? Not much, to be honest. Like, I don't think this is all of a sudden going to make the PS5 run games better. It's going to stay within reason when it comes to costs. Obviously, 5nm, I guess they say it's too expensive. This is Digitimes, though. Like I said, as Dr. Circantoto points out, they're a bit spotty with their track record, and I do wonder even how accurate this report would be. But Sony is certainly trying to figure something out when it comes to the supply constraints, because the demand is super high for the PlayStation 5. And trust me, they want to try to make 30 million PS5s if they can, but they seem to be stuck at like even 15 million. Like, that's a struggle right now because of supply constraints currently in them using newer technology with AMD. AMD is feeling the squeeze as well, as we see video cards having a hard time just to meet demand. So I guess Sony is going the drastic measure, and they're like, well, we might just redesign the whole thing and try to make it work with the components that we have, maybe split them up so we can even get to a point where we can make better yielding chips. That's all I can think of, is they're like, we don't want to have to bin a bunch of chips if we can help it, so let's see if we can make this work with a new design around that. So I don't think you're going to see a PlayStation 5 Pro or anything like that. The redesign is just pointing towards the internals. The system itself will still look exactly the same. And you know what? We've seen this strategy used throughout like several consoles' lives, whether it's the 360 getting a ton of different GPU types and chips, or the PlayStation 3, or even the PlayStation 4. So nothing too new here. It's just interesting to hear about this like 5 or 6 months into the system's lifespan. Already talking about redesigning the internals. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about E3 2021. We're almost a month away, and I have to say, I'm getting pretty excited. It's cool to have E3 back. We missed it last year, and I mean, it was all over the place, obviously, with Summer Games Fest. I think is over because they're talking about starting another one, or I don't know, we might be still be in phase 1 or 2. Hard to say, but I just like the idea of E3 coming back and just giving us a solid 4 to 5 day block of information from like a bunch of different publishers, developers, and studios, and then we kind of reflect on that over the next month as we kind of sift through all the information. Well, it looks like, at least for now, the ESA is doing some pretty good work getting these different studios and publishers on board. We can head over here to Game Informer, where they did put together the list that the ESA has announced yesterday that will be confirmed to be joining, and that's starting at the top: Square Enix, Bandai Namco, Gearbox, Verizon, that'd be Freedom Games, Devious Eye Entertainment, Turtle Beach, Verizon, Binge, and Xseed Games. So it'll be great to see Square. I thought we already talked about Square Enix being there, but I guess this is just official confirmation. Bandai Namco will be good. Gearbox will be interesting. And that on top of several other studios that have already been talked about being there, like Sega, for example, Nintendo, Xbox, Take-Two Entertainment, Ubisoft, Capcom, Warner Brothers Games. The only one that obviously that's kind of sitting out is Sony, but I've said it before, I completely expect them to drop a state of play around E3. It could be the week before, could be the week after, or even just make an announcement during E3. That's very possible, just kind of take away some of the spotlight from the event that would be going on with Nintendo and Microsoft trying to show off different games. But wow, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun here next month, and I'm really looking forward to E3 now as we start to get the E3 hype built up. I think you're also going to start to see some Road to E3 videos going up here soon on the channel, so stay tuned. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked how many Switch systems are in your household right now. 66% of you said 1, 23% of you said 2, 6% said 3, and 5% of you have 4 or more Switch systems. So I was expecting the majority of you to vote for 1. That does make sense. A lot of people are just going to buy 1 Switch and maybe even share it. But seeing how, I mean, really, if you think about it, 34% have at least 2 Switch systems in their house. That does kind of play into what Nintendo has been trying to do, which is sell you another Switch, whether it's the Switch Lite that has been announced with like the bluish one coming out this month, or the special edition Switch systems that continue to drop. I also noticed some of you in the comments asked why didn't I put 0, because this was for people who have a Switch. So I wanted to see if Nintendo's strategy was at least kind of working with the sample size we have here, and if they were able to sell multiple Switch systems to more people. Putting a 0 there just wouldn't make a lot of sense, because this is for Switch owners and if they decide to buy another Switch. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Jay Fernston saying, for $30, my 7 and 10-year-old kids will definitely try Game Builder Garage over the summer. If it holds their interest, it looks to be the type of thing that can be mentally strengthening. You know what? I do like that games now are, especially if they're learning games, are disguised pretty well. Like Labo was disguised extremely well, but that actually taught how a lot of things went together and interacted to make certain things happen, whether it's the piano and you have the infrared on the Joy-Con seeing certain strips that were pressed, for example, or how things like the fishing rod went together. It's really cool, for the most part, as like that learning experience. And Game Builder Garage looks to be the same idea, where it is teaching you how like a game goes together, but it's disguised so well with a really nice looking user interface and a very simplistic look overall for connecting and designing the games, to the point where you could have fun with it, but technically you are learning how this stuff goes together and how it happens. Back in the day, we had like Number Muncher on the Apple II. Here's like a screenshot of it. That's what I used to play for like learning games, and it's pretty obvious. You went around and you just ate numbers or words, even because they had Word Muncher. It's a little frog, depending on if it was like divisible by 2, or if it was a prime number, or any of that. So I do like that we have worked our way up to where it's disguised pretty well. I mean, we had like Brain Age, that was fun, but seeing this from Nintendo, what a cool idea. And hey, you could even have, like you say, 7 or 10-year-olds who get really into this game, and the idea of game development becomes really interesting to them. And then who knows, 10 or 15 years from now, they could be making that next big indie game that we all end up playing. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whereas the big time Switch sales for the hardware, or the software. Let me know what your predictions are for the Switch throughout this fiscal year and the holiday season. Also, what do you think about that PlayStation 5 redesign? Do you think it'll help to alleviate some of these supply constraints that we're seeing now for Sony? And E3, it's about a month out. Are you getting excited? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.